If there was an award for the most improved Chinese electric car manufacturer, it would have to be Neta. The brand surprised everybody when they unveiled this sexy beast at the Guangzhou Auto Show earlier this year. It is, of course, the Neta S. Yes, this is the Neta S. In my opinion, the best looking car in the Neta range, even more so than the GT. I think when the GT came out, everybody was hoping it would look a bit like this because it's got such a striking design. Really like the heavy sculpting on this bonnet, this kind of aerodynamic, very low pointy nose on here. Got these quite striking whisker-like daytime running lights across the front there. The bottom, we've got a diamond pattern grille with a sensor there for your level 2.5 driving. This car is available as an EV or an extended range electric vehicle, so sometimes you get a 1.5 litre engine in here. Along the side, we've got 19-inch alloys. These are the biggest you can get on this car, so not the biggest, but they do seem to fit the proportions of the car quite well. Quite a detailed design there, kind of diamond patterns all over the place, and of course these bright red brake calipers as well, just to show you that you can stop pretty quick. Along the side, kind of more heavy sculpting again, bit of a sharp crease there, tight little waist in the bottom there, and of course a very swooping roofline into quite a tidy rear. Now I quite like the back end of this car. Of course we have a full width daytime running light. That's par for the course for Chinese electric cars, but I do like how they've capped it off with this kind of T-shape at the end here. Quite heavily profiled, sits on those big fat strong haunches at the side there. It looks quite muscular, this car, as well as being quite lithe at the same time. It's quite heavily sculpted too. They've done this convex design, I think a little bit better than on the XPeng P7. It's maybe not quite as attractive as a Neo ET5, which is a bit sharper, but nevertheless it is quite stylish. We do have an electric hatch in this car as well, so of course it is a saloon. No official figures in terms of space, but it's about 80 centimeters deep, about 40 centimeters high, so quite a lot of useful space in there. The only downside is you don't get any folding rear seats, so you can't fold them down. You only get a hatch through the middle, which of course is useful if you decide to go skiing in the car. The only other thing to mention here at the back is that the rearward visibility is marginally better than a Neo ET5. Quite a slim but very wide rear window, so you do get to see a little bit more, but it's not that great. Anyway, very, very stylish rear end. Now Neta is known for being an affordable car brand, kind of a mainstream car brand, but you wouldn't guess that from the interior of this car. It's actually a really lovely place to be with some high-end materials. You get leather on your steering wheel and on the middle part of your seats. You get Alcantara on the outer surfaces of your seats, on the center console here, and on the inside of the doors. So all the places that you're going to be touching, quite often, they're all soft touch materials. Yes, you do get some plastics. You get fake wood up here, you get some gloss black plastic on there, you get some harder plastic underneath and on the base of the doors, but it doesn't really take away from the ambience of the cabin because the bits that you're going to be playing with are generally quite soft. Now, of course, I can't really talk about the interior without highlighting this, the 17.6-inch 2.5K screen in the middle. Very Tesla Model S-esque. It's an enormous screen. On the home menu here, of course, you've got your maps. It runs on the 8155 Snapdragon processor, so it's nice and quick as well. You can move around these little tabs at the bottom here. You can slide your ventilation along there. You do have to click to do your ventilation temperature change, which is a shame, but other than that, it's all pretty nice, and quite a lot of different functionalities in there to customize your car settings, and of course other apps for different things like music and radio, stuff like that, even car seat options as well. That's not the only screen, of course. We do get a smaller DIN screen here. This one is kind of in the style of an LCD matrix screen. It's not an LCD matrix screen, but it looks a little bit like that, and I like it because it's kind of blacked out at the back, white dials at the front, so it's very easy to see, and it fits very nicely in the steering wheel shape here. As well as that, of course, you get a 49-inch AR heads-up display, so that will give you AR directions for your autonomous driving or your mapping system. Gives you, of course, your autonomous driving speed and things like that. Really quite bright, easy to see. But they're not the only screens in this car, because we also get a 12.3-inch screen over here. This one is for the passenger. They can watch TV on there, they can play music, they can do karaoke as well, so actually quite luxurious. And the good thing is, very easy to just turn that off if you don't want to be distracted while you're driving. Now this car does have a few foibles that I don't really like, the steering wheel being one of them. It's the same wheel from the Neta GT, comes with two simple buttons either side of a roller wheel on both sides. The problem is they're haptic touch. So sometimes you've got to press really hard just to change the song on the radio. Really don't like it. Just please give us some physical buttons on the steering wheel. That would be much better. The same goes for the window switches, which are also haptic touch, and they've done the same thing that Volkswagen did by giving us a button to change to the rear windows. No, just give me 4 switches, 4 physical switches, please. That's what everybody wants. The final thing is the driving position. The driving position itself, not that bad at all. I mean, it does feel a little bit high when you get in, but if you kind of maneuver the seat a little bit and put the seat backrest down, then you get kind of a more lower driving position. But the problem is that we don't get base cushion extension. Now, a lot of cars don't come with base cushion extension, but the passenger seat does get it. They get it for the luxurious, laid-back feeling of watching a movie. But it can't have been that difficult to put the same seat on this side of the car as well. I don't know why they've done that. So please, Neta, next time you make the Neta S, when you update it, please put the base cushion extension on the driver's seat as well, just to make that driving position better. But yeah, it's really quite a nice place to be. You get quite a lot of storage, you get decent sized door pockets, bit of space there behind the screen. In here, you get twin cup holders and a wireless phone charger. It's not the fastest in the world and it's not ventilated, so it does tend to cook your phone a little bit. They could do with uprating that a little bit. If you don't want to charge it on that, you've got USB-C and USB-A sockets. You've also got a decent bit of space in there and a glove box as well. We also get quite a decent sound system in this car. So normal versions of the car get 12 speakers. At the base of the door, you get a couple up here, one at the top there as well, and on the dashboard, and you get 2 in your headrests on the driver's and the passenger side as well. And if you want to go for the higher end versions of the car, you get 21 speakers for an even better sound system. Not that bassy, but pretty good overall, I would say. Not too bad, the sound system. Another thing to mention, we do get heating, ventilation and massage on these 2 front seats. On the higher end version of this car, the lower end versions maybe don't get the massage, but they think they all get the heating and the ventilation. So it's a very premium place up front, and it's not that bad in the back either. One of the first things I noticed when I sat in the S at the Guangzhou Auto Show earlier this year was how comfortable the back seats are. You get really quite a steeply raked base cushion, which gives you a lot of thigh support, which you don't always get in the back of electric cars. You also get a very heavily sculpted rear backrest as well, which helps you feel kind of very embraced and cosseted, very comfortable in the back of the car. You don't get a lot of foot room with this seat as low as it goes, so a little tight on the foot space, but you do get plenty of knee room and a reasonable amount of headroom as well. There's space for my hand above my hair there, courtesy of this 1.9 square metre panoramic roof. Now the good thing is that's a lot of light into the cabin. The downside is there's no cover, so it can get a little bit hot on sunny days. You also get quite a heavy armrest here in the back, can be a little bit clunky at times. You get a pair of cup holders in there. You also get backrest angle adjustment on these 2 seats, so you get between 27 degrees and 35 degrees of backrest angle on there, which you can control again with haptic buttons here on the center console. A little bit of space in there. Elsewhere, we get USB-C and USB-A sockets down there, a clock and a little dial that tells you how hot the temperature is coming out of these vents here. You also get a little sort of nuclear symbol here in the door that allows you to cycle through the radio, MP3, Bluetooth, whichever different musical input you want at the front there. That's quite a useful thing to have, even though it gives you quite limited control, I would say. Another thing that I didn't mention in the front is the ambient lighting. Very nice in this car, under this kind of chrome line here, all around the front of the dashboard and the doors, either side of the center console, and you get kind of a little pattern here behind this gloss black plastic as well, which is quite attractive at night time. I have to say, very comfortable back seat in this car. If you watched our video about the Neta GT, you'll know that we were quite pleasantly surprised actually by how good it was. It's actually a good car. I mean, it's not quite as engaging as a Polestar 2, for example, in terms of sportiness, but it was quite decent. It stayed quite pliant. It had decent steering. It was, wasn't exactly quick because the single motor versions are not that quick of the GT, but it was good. You'll be pleased to know that the S, I think, is actually a better car than the GT in every way, and it's really impressed me in almost every metric. So the steering, for one. Now, you can change the settings in the system to make it light or hard. Most Chinese cars tend to come with light steering. The difference is, in most cars, when you put it on the hard setting, it still feels quite numb and lifeless. It just feels heavier. It's a bit artificial. On this car, it makes a big difference. So actually, it becomes a lot more weighty, becomes a lot more feelsome, becomes a lot more accurate and precise. And actually, it's good. It's really good. And the car stays pliant and flat when you actually give it some beans and throw it around a little bit. It's got very little body roll. It's a really well set up car in terms of handling. And that may be because we've got the rear wheel drive motor version. I don't know, but it's a really good car. Not only that though, the damping is actually brilliant as well. This car doesn't come with continuous damping control or air suspension. None of that fancy stuff that you get on higher level cars, yet it soaks up everything. So I've taken it down some pretty crappy roads, you know, really sunken grids, heavily broken roads, you know, fine frequency bumps. It's been really good. It's just gone over all of them, no problem. The only time that you feel something a little bit out of place is maybe when you're on a speed bump and you're on full lock. Then you feel a little bit more of a knock, but that's the only time. It's really well accomplished. So much better than you would expect from a Neta, because they did not make sports cars before the S and the GT. They made family cars that were, quite honestly, very cheap, quite hilarious to drive actually. The S and the GT, both brilliant cars. This one, I like it a lot. Also, you get the option to adjust your braking, so you can make your braking a little bit more firm, and you also get the option to do one pedal driving, and you get the option to put it to a complete stop. Most Chinese cars will just trickle at about 3 or 4 kilometers when you slow down. This one, you can actually make it come to a full stop, and it's really accessible. So if you don't usually use one pedal driving and you're just getting used to it, it's very easy to use. It's not quite as strong or as aggressive as a Tesla, but it is really useful to the point where you don't really need to use your brakes most of the time. Now, I mentioned that we've got the rear-wheel drive version of this car. You can get rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drive versions come with a 170 kilowatt motor, which has 310 Newton meters of torque. If you get the dual motor version, and there's only one, then you get the same motor, but on the front axle as well. So let's say 340 kilowatts of power and 620 Newton meters of torque. The single motor version, not that quick, I'll be honest with you. It's certainly much slower from a standing start. It's actually all right once you get going. Once you need kind of mid-range torque, it's totally fine, but it's a little bit slow from a starting point. It will only do 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 6.9 seconds, which is about 2 seconds slower than a Hyper GT, which has a single motor, albeit a more powerful one. So yeah, it's definitely leisurely, but it's all right. It's not that bad at all. If you get the dual motor version, that comes down quite considerably to just 3.9 seconds. So it's a lot faster in dual motor form. But someone recently mentioned on Twitter that maybe it's a bit irresponsible, car manufacturers always talking about the 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time, because people will try and go as fast as they can. Fair enough. This car has a 100 to 0 kilometer per hour stop of just 33.5 meters. Now, for comparison, that's the same as a Neo ET7 and shorter than a Neo ET5. Bear in mind that ET5 has got quite a fancy braking system, self-developed by Neo, and this one doesn't come with any of that. That's quite impressive. Very good stopping distance in this car. See, it's pretty good. My bag fell off the back seat, so it's very nice. Anyway, in terms of the batteries, well, you do get different versions of this car, of course. You get the extended range electric vehicle version, and I'll give you the details of that at the bottom of the page. That you can get in either 1,060 kilometers of range or 1,160 kilometers of range. If you go for the full battery electric versions like we have, you get 3 choices: 520 kilometers of range, that's the 64.5 kilowatt hour battery, or the 715 kilometer range version, that's the one that we're driving now. This one comes with an 84.5 kilowatt hour battery. And if you have the dual motor version, you'll get the biggest battery, 91 kilowatt hours. That will get you 650 kilometers of range on CLTC. In real world driving, that's probably about 20 to 25% less than the number stated on the tin. So it's quite a decent range actually, not that bad. We've been averaging 14.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so pretty similar to the XPeng G6 that we drove, I would say. So not bad actually, not bad, quite decent efficiency. In terms of charging, it will do 30 to 80% in about 35 minutes. So it's based on a 400 volt system, so not exactly the fastest charging in the world, but it'll do, it will suffice. They haven't yet moved to the 800 volt systems on this car. In terms of dimensions, this car is pitched directly at the XPeng P7, Neo ET5, albeit that's a much more expensive car, and the, something like a Shenlan 03 or a Hyper GT. So it is 4.98 meters long, 1.98 meters wide, has a height of 1.45 meters and a wheelbase of 2.98 meters. So a lot of 9s and 8s in those numbers there. The prices, though, are where this car again gets really interesting. And it's not even surprising anymore, because the Chinese car industry has this insane price war, which means that in China, at least, I'll clarify that, in China at least, you get a ridiculous amount of kit for your money. So if you go for the base extended range electric vehicle version or the base full battery electric vehicle version, you will pay 159,800 RMB, which is just £17,700 or $22,000. You get a lot of kit for your money at that price. If you want to go up to the 715 kilometer range version that we have, you'll pay 229,800 RMB, which is about £25,500 or $31,500. Again, a really good car and a lot of kit for your money. There's also the dual motor version, which is 259,800 RMB. I'll give you the currency translations below. That version comes with Neta Pilot 3.0. Our car comes with version 2.5. Speaking of the autonomous driving system, ours is, I believe, level 2.5. Have to say, it's not the best system in the world, to be totally honest with you. So two things will happen. It will, 90% of the time, totally fine. But if you go into a tunnel, for example, it will have a few instances of phantom braking, where it thinks that there's something there that isn't there. So that's one of the things that happens. The other one is if you're in the first lane and the car in front of you pulls off at a junction, the car has a tendency to try and follow the car off and then realize, oh, hang on, no, I need to stay in this lane, we're not coming off here. So, it's a little bit flawed, I would say, the autonomous driving system. Not the best in the world, but then again, you're not paying massive amounts of money for it either. But yeah, overall, really impressive car. I should also mention that it's very quiet, because it comes with double glazing on the front and on the side windows, front and back as well. So, like I said, you're getting a lot of stuff for your money. A really well sorted car, 50-50 weight distribution. It's quick enough, handling is good, the steering feel is good. Overall, really impressive package for driving, far more so than I expected. So that's it for our review of the Neta S, a car that, quite honestly, has surprised me a lot. I thought this might be a bit of a bridge between the Netas of old and the GT, which is quite a good car. Actually, I think this is the pick of the bunch. Not only is it incredibly attractive, you can see that where you're looking from, but it's got a lot of substance too. The ride and handling is brilliant. The interior, very comfortable and very well equipped, and at a ridiculously low price, especially here in China. Now, yeah, it will get more expensive if you go abroad, but put this up against a Peugeot 508 or a Volkswagen Passat, what are you going to take? Probably this. This is actually a much better car. And in China, you're going to compare it to something like an XPeng P7 or a Shenlan 03, both electric cars that are both actually quite good. This one maybe not as technologically advanced as those, but it does make a very good case for itself. Very attractive car at an amazing price point. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and if you do, thank you for subscribing. We'll catch you next time.